Not really. I mean, it was about L'étranger, a book by Camus. But we called it Killing an Arab, mainly because it was a song that we'd been doing for about a year before that. I mean, it was actually released in '78, but we'd been doing it for a year before, and like titles like that, I suppose, were, had shock value. It's the same type of cheap tactic that we've used for the new album, really. It was just to grab people's attention. Like Killing an Arab, thought, oh my god, racist, But if anyone actually bothered to listen to it, you could tell straight away it wasn't a racist song. But we only ever had trouble once with it, which was in Wolverhampton, which a students' union there refused to let us play unless we agreed not to play it.
Oh dear.
So that was,
what was the outcome of that evening?
I went on stage and told the audience what was happening backstage, and they got into, I suppose, what you call an ugly mood, and the students union back down.
Is that something the band feels very strongly about? I mean, with regards to the titles and certain other things which revolve around the band. I mean, do you sit and put a lot of thought into how you're going to grab the public's attention?
No, I think we spend more time seeing how we can avoid the public's attention. but everything that's ever done, well, I'll say virtually everything is under our control. Nothing can actually go through and be released, either in records or artwork or even adverts or anything, or t-shirts, badges, without us having vetoed them personally. Everything has to go through one of the three of us, which the only disadvantage of it is that as you get more success, I suppose, and as you attract more attention, the workload becomes even greater and can have an effect on, I suppose, what you call your creativity, or pretensions to creativity anyway. And like, if you spend a lot of time looking over t-shirt designs and like worrying about an advert that's going out in Germany, it's less time you can spend actually perfecting something musically. But we still managed to keep an eye on everything, because it is important, because it's to anyone outside of anyone outside of the three of us, it's just another group. But I mean, to the three of us, it's like it's the group, because obviously we're in it all the time. So I don't like the idea of delegating that responsibility to anyone else, really, however good their intentions, because that way you can always lay blame at someone else's door. I'd rather take all the blame, ourselves, if anything went wrong.
What about the Susie and the Banshees tour, which intrigues me wholly on the strength of the fact that you played a double role during that tour? Because I believe they had some sort of mess up with their guitarist, which caused you to do a warm-up, or excuse the term warm-up, but do the support act in the form of The Cure, and then actually go back on and do the Susie and the Banshees thing. How did you feel about that? I mean, did you put on a different hat? Did you try and disguise yourself any, or was it a known fact that you were there sort of twice a night?
I couldn't pretend I wasn't there. It was quite heavily publicised at the time. I mean, it was good for The Cure, really, in that we only decided to do that tour. We were never going to do a support act. We went on it on the billing as special guests, which really made no difference at all. But we only did it because they were one of the bands that I really admired and still do. I mean, they're still one of my favourite three bands. And also she's my older sister, so I didn't mind doing it at all. It's really good. It drew attention to us, and it was also it really broadened a lot of my attitudes to playing with the Banshees, which is up until that point I'd been, I didn't hate playing live, but I didn't particularly enjoy it at all, and because I had a really sort of like removed attitude. I wouldn't move, and I didn't even like looking at people and stuff. I just like being on stage with her. It was quite good, because she was so much at the other extreme. She used to attack people, and it was. After a couple of weeks I just thought, this is much more fun doing it this way. Even though they still retained like an image of being really, like icy and unapproachable. Yeah. It's the only, really, that's the only relationship I've built within the music business that's still there. I mean, it's the only one that survived. They're the only band still that I can go out with, or and sleep on their floor.
Do you think that you lean on her success a lot then? I mean, has it made things easier from your point of view?
No, not at all, because it's although I suppose we're peer groups and we're in the same type of area, I suppose. I mean, we're more affiliated with the Banshees than we are with Dollar, so it's no, I don't think so, because it's we've done things at different times. I mean, the Banshees are always like 2 years ahead of us, like in terms of development. I mean, whether they're more developed than us, or, and I don't mean it in the sense of comparison, but just within the actual band, because they've undergone the lineup change, which we initially after that tour we did as well. I mean, like Michael left, who'd been playing bass with us, ever since we started, and I mean that again, that breakup of us came about because the of the Banshees split, because I saw then, like, the Banshees by then were an institution anyway, of sorts, I mean, they were like one of the forerunners, and when they sort of like split up, the original incarnation, I thought, well, if someone like that can split up and then decide to carry on and do things that are even better, then there should be no reason why we should keep going. Because at that time, me and Michael weren't getting on at all, but we were staying together because we'd been together. It was like it had never been considered that we should not play together, because we've been doing it for about 5 years, I think.
Looking at it from the outside, if you like, the layman's point of view, the obvious thought would be that you would have followed, if you like, in Sister's footsteps and joined that band, instead of pursuing what obviously seems to be your own career with The Cure. Why the decision to, if you like, take on the harder task of the two?
I suppose because there'd always be a conflict. I mean, in the Banshees you've got Susie and Severin write the songs, basically, and it just works. And in the Cure, I write most of the stuff, and that works as well. I mean, it would probably there'd be just like a conflict if I were to work. And also, I didn't enjoy playing other people's songs as much at the time. I mean, sometimes when we're sort of like 15 days into a tour, I think, good God, it'd be so wonderful just to stand back and play guitar and let someone else sort of like sing and worry about falling over, remember, just collapse back into a flight case, really brainless, that I have to go out and remember the words. But it's, I don't know, it's just more enjoyable, like the relationship stayed healthy between us and the Banshees because we're not in contact continually. I mean, we see them for like a couple of weeks at a time, and they go away, we go away, or But
you touched very briefly on the continental side of things as far as the band's concerned, the travelling and doing the New Zealand, Australia, Canada, so on and so forth. Is that something you enjoy?
Yeah, I mean, a good example was when we were in Los Angeles last year, and we bumped into the Psychedelic Furs. Literally, it's the only way you get to meet the Psychedelic Furs if you bump into them. But and that was really good fun. Like, we'd never met them before. They were one of the other bands that we admired, and I'd always liked what they'd done. And they, like John, the guitarist, he was just like really, really good to get on with, and that made the tedium of playing in America bearable for a couple of days, which was good. And Lydia Lunch was over there as well, and that was quite good fun.
Well, would you say you have a preference as far as playing is concerned between the continent and here in the UK? Do the crowd react differently, do you think?
Don't know, I've been asked that question so many millions of times, I never know how to answer it. I mean, sometimes I used to pretend to think there was a difference in nationalities, but I really don't think there is. I mean, there's a difference, I suppose, in the audience reaction to us, but I don't think there's a particular difference between audiences here and abroad. The only factor that would influence audiences here as opposed to abroad is that this tends to be looked on as the centre of at least like newer music. So
yes.
things are always sung in English, and like the bands usually come from England and tour abroad. You very rarely get any excitement in England about a French band coming over and playing, which is a bit of a shame, really. Although at the moment, I have yet to hear that many bands that would even stand up regardless of what nationality. Like DAF are really good. They come over, they get taken notice of, but there's still very few. I mean, like Dutch bands and things like that. And yet they revere a lot of English bands. English bands go over them. It's like the very fact that they're English is enough, which is a bit of a stupid mentality, but I mean, it's their fault.
Do you make it a point to keep your finger on what's happening currently in the music scene? In relation to what it is you do, I mean, I'm sure that you mentioned Dollar earlier on. I'm sure that you don't actually sit at night and listen to their wonderful album, but do you listen to what is happening currently, and if you like the musical trend that you're involved in? I noticed a slight hesitation when you wanted to try and categorise the musical form that the band was in. You called it newer type music.
Yeah, I don't actually. I never read music papers. I never keep up with that side of things. I try and listen to Peel occasionally. I'll tape it and I'll listen to it just to see. I'm not really to keep abreast of what's going on, but just purely for entertainment value. But no, I never. I don't really consider myself as a musician. I mean, I'm only involved in music business through chance, I suppose, more than anything else. And because I enjoy it. But I don't religiously follow what's going on. You know, there's certain people that do that I know, and they'll come to me and say, "Have you heard such and such thing?" And I'll say, "No, give me it," you know, and they'll sort of like let me never get it back, and that way I can sort of like keep abreast of what's happening that's good. But I mean, to sift through everything that's going on, or to try, you know, to do it yourself and do this and do everything else. I mean,
right. How many hours do you want in the day? What about the new album then? Because let's try and work a comparison on the new album to the previous albums. You mentioned earlier on that there is a difference. Would it suggest that we're on to a new chapter of The Cure?
Someone else said that to me yesterday. Is this a transition period? It's funny because we tend to we like are writing stuff all the time, and we'll write like 10 songs or something and reject them all, and then we'll write 2 songs and one will be really good, and then we'll write 2 more like it, and 1 more will be good, and then we'll have 2 good songs, and then suddenly we'll write a batch of songs that will be completely different, scrap the initial 2, and then have like 5 songs really good, and think quick into the studio. And that's how we work. That's why the albums are so you know, come out really haphazardly, because they're never planned. I mean, there's never any pressure on us to make records. They're not saying like, "Go, alright, you've got to make an album, Cure." So this time we just went into the studio and we had that title as a working title because we just wanted to do something that was far more aggressive than we'd done before, and more sort of like dealing with an exterior rather than an interior. Which Faith was very much like an interior album, and that it was purely what went on. You know, it was about belief and stuff and things like that. But Pornography was meant really to reflect on a more general sense, like human nature and our attitudes towards certain stereotypes and certain situations. But it changed radically in the studio. Like, we went in the first 2 days and started recording and thought, no, this isn't any good after all. But we stumbled on this set of sounds, drum sounds and bass guitar, and I wanted to hire in all these instruments that we couldn't play. We were all choosing instruments that we had never played before, and then just making up pieces on them. And in fact, they were much more interesting. None of them were on the album, because I mean, otherwise people would think, you know, this was a drastic attempt to try and be, you know, wacky or something. But they sparked off like a series of ideas which ended up as being the song. So in fact we spent about 10 days in the studio doing stuff that never even ended up on the album. We'd only booked 3 weeks, so then we had to book like another 2 weeks. So, but it was quite good fun. I mean, like, we just got completely brainless for a lot of the time. We were just thinking, so we had loads of stuff on tape, and the next day we come back and we listen to it, and then we think, oh, that's a good idea, and we take it out and like work it around it, because we also had sets of lyrics, like virtually all the lyrics were written before we went into the studio, so we were just really messing about musically. And it turned out, I mean, I'm never satisfied with what we do, but I'm probably more satisfied with this one than I was with Faith at the time.
If there ever comes a time when you sit down and say you're satisfied with the album, will that mean that it's time to finish and give up?
No, it'll be time for me to be happy if we do. I mean, there's an occasion we've done things that I think are good, and that I think have been done satisfactorily. But no, I don't. It'd be very pat to say, you know, when I've done something I'm satisfied with, I give up. I wouldn't, because I wouldn't know what to do. You know, if I mean, I'd sort of sit there for 3 months and then write a song and think, oh, I'll go and record that and we'll be back to a thing. I'm touring something. It's the one aspect of the Cure which will close down on probably after this summer. We won't do any more, you know, like tours as such, because this is not through any double hitness or anything. It's just it's getting to a point where it's really physically and emotionally wearing. You know, like you just tend to become, if you become a touring unit, everything's geared around that idea of moving from place to place, and it's but at the moment it's become very disruptive to a lot of other things that I'd like to do.
We've managed quite nicely to get away totally from the Pornography album, which we started talking about. But the one question I wanted to ask you in relation to that album is, once again, before we turned the microphone on, I asked you the obvious question, what is going to be the single? And you said there's not, which seems like a really strange attitude, because again, maybe it's just because one expects nothing more than an expectation that there's going to be a single from an album.
Yeah, I don't think Polydor were that, gloriously happy when we told them that we weren't going to release a single, because it is. I mean, it's just like an accepted way of marketing an album.
Uniformity, isn't it?
Like getting the radio played and saying this single is from the album, such. If you like the single, buy the album. But as there's no obvious single on the album, when we made the album, we didn't even consider a single. Occasionally people come in and say, have you got a single yet? And we say, well, no, I'm not going to worry about that. If there's one there, we'll take it off, and we'll put it out as a single. Or if we come up with something that doesn't fit on the album, but it might work as a single, we'll bring it out. But as it turned out, there wasn't really. I mean, there was one track which we haven't put on the album, which was considered as a single, but it's just that over the past couple of months, I think there's been some really, really good singles, really strong singles, like Human League, bands like that. And I mean, there's like, for me, there's two ideas of putting out a single. One is that sense of competition, of aiming to get high in the charts, to get noticed. And I just don't think that anything that we have done over the past few months in the studio would stand up to like an obvious single, like a Human League single, and there'd be no point in us trying to compete. And the other idea of releasing a single is what we did with Charlotte Sometimes, which we brought out last November or something, which we knew wouldn't stand a hope of getting into the charts. But it was just a song that was written, and we liked it, so we went to the studio, and in a day we just sort of like did it, and then we released it, and I mean, it's hardly sold at all, but certain people, it's their favourite Cure song, so it's worked for a certain amount of people, which was a good idea. It wasn't actually selling anything, we weren't touring to promote it or anything, it was just released.
Happened.
But no, I mean, eventually I would like us to do a single, just to write a single. I'd like to sit down and think, right, I must write a single, and do it in a really clinical way, just to see if we could actually do a hit single, because it is an art in itself, really. I think writing a good, really catchy thing. I mean, I'd love us to get to number one. It'd be really funny, and then never do anything like it again. It'd be great. But as to whether we will or could, I don't know. We'll have to find out.
So obviously, with the Pornography album and not having any intention of releasing a single, is there still a favourite track?
We've all got different favourite tracks, and I think they're because they're all so varied that it's difficult to pull one out. I mean, no one track sums up the album, which usually on all our other albums there is a sound. In this one there's 8 different sounds, really. But I suppose the sound that people would be most surprised by, I suppose, is the first one on the first side, 100 Years, and it's more unlike The Cure than anything else on there.
Well, we can fortunately have a listen to that. Robert Smith of The Cure, thank you very much indeed for coming in.
Thank you.
Cheers.